Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to create a flow to automate the user onboarding process in an organization. We will be utilizing Microsoft Forms and Power Automate to achieve this. For that, I opened my Power Automate portal using my Testnet account. Let's start creating the flow. Click on the Create tab in the navigation panel and select Automated Cloud Flow. Give your flow a name. And for the trigger, select when a new response is submitted associated with the Forms connector. Basically, connectors will let us integrate with different services such as Azure AD, SharePoint, Outlook, and so on. It allows us to make use of the functionalities within Power Automate itself. So here, I'm starting with the Microsoft Forms connector from which I have selected the trigger now. And before clicking Create, let me quickly tell you all the basic preview of our process. I have already created this Microsoft form having the required fields for creating a new user account in my Azure Active Directory. I have set the form to be accessed and filled out by some authorized members of my organization. So, whenever any of them fills and submits this form, our flow will get triggered, and an approval request to add the new user will be sent to the manager using their UPN filled out in this form. On their approval, a new Azure AD account will be created and the manager will be assigned to the new user. Now, let's get back to our flow and click Create. By clicking the drop-down menu of the Form ID field, you will be listed with all the forms that you have created so far. I'm going to select the form that I have created for this flow, which I have shown you earlier. The next action is Get Response Details. Here again for the form ID, select the same form which you have selected in the previous action, and for the response ID, select the value from the dynamic content. So basically, this action will retrieve all the details that were filled out in the submitted form response. Next, let's use the Get User Profile action. For this field, let's pass the manager's UPN from the dynamic content retrieved from the form. Once this value is passed, the action getUserProfile could be able to fetch their ID and also their other details like name, mail, and more. The next action that I have selected is Send an email from the Outlook connector. If the value entered for the manager's UPN field in the form is invalid, that is, some UPN which is not under a tenant, the previous action getUserProfile will fail and it will result in the failure of the entire flow. To handle that failure, I'm using the Send an Email action so that we would send an email to the form responder to let them know that they have made a mistake while filling out the form. Hence, in the To field, select the responder's email from the dynamic content. For the subject and body, you shall fill out as per the context. It could be like the user onboarding failed due to the invalid entry of manager's UPN. Also, the Send an Email action should run only if the previous action fails. So, set the configure run after of the Send an Email action as has failed. In contrast, if the Get User Profile works perfectly without failure, the Send an Email action should be skipped and proceed to the next action, which is Approval. Let's select the action Start and wait for an approval. First, set its configure run after as the previous action, that is, send an email is skipped. Now, for the approval type, select approve or reject first to respond, since there will be one manager for the new user as per our form design. Give a title for this approval request. Select the mail of the manager retrieved by getUserProfile from the dynamic content, as we are assigning this approval to the manager. For the details field, we shall include the necessary information about the new user which should be considered by the manager for reviewing the approval to decide whether to approve or reject it, while the other two fields are not actually needed and we shall just leave it unfilled. Next, we shall proceed to further actions after checking if the manager approved the request or not. So, let's add the action condition. Set the condition as responses approval response is equal to approve. It should be either approve or reject, and we need to manually type it. Now you can see that the condition is placed within the action apply to each. Since there might be more than one response, to apply further actions on each of those responses, apply to each has been included itself. We shall leave it as it is. Back to our condition, the if-else part will only run if the manager approved the request. Within if-else, we will be adding the actions to create a new user and to assign a manager if the approval is granted. We shall first add the action create user. Set the account enabled as yes. Select the values for the fields display name, mail nickname, user principal name, given name, and surname from the dynamic content, since we have included these fields in our form. Then you must set a strong password with a minimum of 8 characters for the new user. They shall have the right to change their password during their first sign-in. Next, let's assign a manager for this new user using the action assign manager. From the dynamic content, we shall pass the new user's user ID or UPN, which was created in the previous step, and the user ID of the manager could also be retrieved. Parallelly, I'm going to inform the form responder that the new user whom they requested to add got added to the organization's tenant. So let's use send an email action and set the to field to the responder's email address. Let's also add some content for the fields subject and body. Now, let's consider the scenario of the manager rejecting the approval request. In such case, we will send an email to the form responder to let them know that the manager rejected their approval request. Hence, select the responder's email in the to field and fill out the subject and body contents accordingly. That's it. You shall save the flow and now it's ready to be tested. For the flow to get triggered, first someone needs to submit a response for the form created for this flow. Let's fill out this form. I'm providing Alice for the first name and Bob for the last name. This one for the display name and value for the user principal name must contain your organization's domain name, and this one for the mail nickname. Finally, for the manager's UPN, enter a valid UPN which is licensed under your organization's tenant. Let's submit this form and our flow must have got triggered by now. Let's check whether an approval request is received in the manager's Outlook inbox. Here, in the manager's Outlook inbox, we can see that an approval request with the added information is received. After reviewing this information, I'm going to approve it and click Submit. Now the user must have been added to our organization's tenant. We shall verify that in our organization's Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Here in the Admin Center, after refreshing and searching for the new user, we can see that the new user got added under active users. This means that our flow ran successfully. Feel free to share your approach to automate repetitive Microsoft 365 tasks in your organization in the comment section below.